Right, let's go for this. This might be an interesting one.
Or autism spectrum disorder is a complex neurodevelopmental disorder that may include impairments in social interaction, developmental language, and communication skills.
Oh my god.
Sensory sensitivity.
This guy
Usually
is like
described
using all of like the red flags and stuff like for videos, but I'm sure it'll be nice because he's actually going to be spending a day with autistic people, so that could be interesting. Rachel C says, yes, it did. I think the point you made about emotions was super helpful. Help me understand what's going on. Yeah, it can feel very much like sometimes it just doesn't exist, but you just feel like generally down. And just like thinking about the same thing, but not really like connecting the two. I find that a lot.
form of childhood schizophrenia and the result of cold parenting, the definition of autism has majorly...
The cold parenting is like the refrigerator mother hypothesis. I think Professor Temple Grandin actually like dispelled that myth. But just be aware that the things that I watch are not necessarily saying this is the best way to represent autism. I mean, they have jigsaw pieces in the background, which is not always the best. But it used to be, I think there was like a few scientists. I was reading a book about it called like Neurotribes, and they were talking about like, well, yeah, they were saying that like some German scientists, I think, thought that it was like schizophrenia related autism, and it is actually, to be honest, misdiagnosed quite a bit. I think some of the behaviours might be quite similar in terms of unaware psychology people.
Evolved over the last 6 decades as people have begun to understand autism more. My name's Anthony Padilla, and today I'm going to be sitting down with people on the autism spectrum to learn the truth behind this often overlooked and misunderstood disorder. Should autism be accepted as a simple difference rather than a disorder? Or should society be doing everything in its power to discover a cure for this neurodivergence?
I've got a hot take. Why don't we just like leave it up to the actually autistic people to decide this rather than asking this question?
Such a vast amount of the population. Do those on the spectrum feel blessed to have the ability to view the world in a truly unique and heightened way that neurotypical or allistic people could never imagine? Or is being on the spectrum an immense hindrance they wish they could get rid of in order to perceive the world like everyone else?
I suppose this is for like a mainstream audience.
Proud of their disorder? Or do they hide in the shadows of society, overwhelmed with immense guilt and shame surrounding the hand they were dealt? Hi, Aniela. Hey, Richard. Hello. Hi, Jasmine.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming out and teaching me about the wondrous...
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Thank you for having me.
So what do you consider yourself? Autistic? Someone with autism or on the spectrum?
I consider myself autistic.
I'm autistic person. Most of the time, for those that are a bit more familiar, I have
Repping that identity first language.
to be on the spectrum.
I like to say that I have autism because it's more of just the whole, it's not me and it's just something that I have. I don't want it to rule me.
That's an interesting one because that's like a hot kind of topic. Like on the one side, I think, you know, it's always a really weird line to walk when I'm doing like my social media posts and things like that, because on the one hand, I do have my own view of autism, and I would, you know, I love identity first language, but then again, like, really the whole movement of autistic people speaking out for themselves, it is like, it should be about that person, what that person actually wants, in terms of referring to themselves, you know, like, I think that would be really interesting. Zachary Ansel says, I want to make a movie about autistic adults, but as a dark comedy, because we can be funny AF most of the time anyway. Yeah, we also have like our own like weird ways of humor. Like one of my ways of delivering humor is taking things literally when you shouldn't. Like, and some people who know me and they know that I'm autistic, they're like, did you really understand that? Is that just this kind of something that you just said off the cuff? And and you don't actually understand what's going on. And I'm like, no, I was just trying to be funny. And they just don't get it. Whereas if you do that with autistic people, they're like, I see what you're doing there.
Once I was going to do this video, there was a lot of people that were saying that I should refer to autistic people as people with autism and not autistic people. Are you...
There's a lot of
is there
healthcare
one
social
that you
providers.
prefer over the other?
I think both of those are fine with me.
I really don't have a preference. I'm pretty casual with it.
Yeah.
Usually autistic.
That's another view that I think's pretty cool, pretty good. You know, just whatever kind of suits you during the conversation. I understand that.
Person because I feel like it just keeps my identity.
What does having autism entail?
And it's more of just a social disorder. I don't get a lot of social cues. There'll be times where I'm, for example, direct eye contact
With
is not the
neurotypicals.
greatest thing for me, but I wouldn't be like not listening. I like to multitask. I like to do things like that.
So it's almost like your brain's running too fast and it wants to see other things?
Yes. I know socially when you're talking to someone, you have to look at them directly, but
Yeah, I see that, Zachary.
That doesn't
I'm not
come
saying-
naturally.
Yeah, it's not easy.
I think being autistic means you have
New V
Oh, for
hair
God's sake.
removal cream removes the toughest hair from just 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to get the premium at some point.
Are you sure?
2
you
in a
really
row?
know how much it costs to drive?
God, he's
a
really
car?
juicing this
Well, I'm
video.
one of those motorists. Forget.
more hurdles to go. Bigger hurdles, more hurdles. Everything's a bit more difficult.
So everything is just a track with a bunch of hurdles in the way and you're
Yes.
constantly trying to jump over them.
Exactly.
Being autistic is a different way of thinking. Our brains work differently than the average human being, like the way we process things.
probably
we
gonna,
experience
like,
things. For example,
Mute
we
it
get
when the
really
adverts come on just so
interested
that they're
in
not
things
too
that
annoying.
other people wouldn't typically be interested in, like math or chemistry or art, and we get super focused on those.
Before we learn
I think, to be honest, like, from speaking to a lot of autistic people, it tends less to be about, like, the STEM fields that people have interest in. It tends to be a lot about, like, well, it can be, like, things like biology, that you see with, like, the shark girls and stuff online. But it can also be, like, a lot of the time, fantasy and art and, like, creative things. That's just, like, what I've seen.
about the wondrous world of autism, I just wanted to introduce you to the newest addition to our set. This was meticulously hand-painted by Rihanna Robles. She did an incredible job looking sexy, if I do say so myself. Let's give a huge round of applause to Rihanna Robles for this amazing job. This one's for you. Now back to learning about the wondrous world of autism. Do you consider autism to be a hindrance in your day-to-day life?
I used to think it was, but now I think it's an advantage because I coped with my autism by social isolation, and that gave me the opportunity to get better at the things that I like to do. For example, painting and riding a bike, because I can do those things by myself. And then they treat me like I'm, not as good as them or not as smart as they are, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a normal person sometimes.
I think I used to, but when adapting, I've now thought of it as a positive thing because I wouldn't be who I am.
It used to be a hindrance when I was a little kid. Now it's more of just another thing, just another exception.
Just another trait that you
Hey,
have.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I lie. I think it's just having a different brain. It's not necessarily good or bad. I think depending on, like, whether you've adapted your life to something that makes sense for you or not, I think that's probably, like, the most important thing. And then you can kind of see, like, some of, like, the positives of it. You just got to be able to pull up some of your deficits through the way that you live, the way that you work, things like that. And but overall for me, I'd probably sit somewhere in the middle of, like, positive to neutral, positive to negative rather. Probably tilting a little bit more towards the positive side of things, just because of the acceptance and awareness stuff that I do. I'm going to open the window now because it is absolutely roasting in here because of my PC. Let's dive back in.
Exactly, yeah.
So there's a spectrum with autism. Can you describe what that spectrum is?
I only know that I'm high-functioning autism.
How does having
Oh.
autism affect your day-to-day life?
Well, I'm seemingly normal on the outside, but on the inside, I'm different than the average person, and I get bullied from it.
Oh, really?
Where are the
Yeah,
autism
usually
creators
I'm
at?
What specifically do people bully you for?
Usually it's the way that I talk or look around. When I was a kid,
The high functioning autism thing. I wish they wouldn't have brought that up. I understand that this is for like a mainstream audience for them understanding what autism is, but like I don't know if I view it in exactly that way. I either see people as autistic or not. And like if they have a lot of support needs, they struggle with a lot of things in daily life. Like they usually have a diagnosis like a learning disability as well, which is you know, I don't know whether you can really separate them out as like different types of autism. It just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe if we knew a little bit more about like the actual biology of it and like how it comes about and what like an autistic brain exactly looks like and why it looks like that, then maybe we can make that assumption. But not for me at the moment.
I got bullied for everything. The way that I dress, and well, there's this one math teacher who used to get so mad at me when I wouldn't do my homework. But I was just a kid. I didn't realize how important homework was.
Yeah.
And so you'd have the other students make sure that I wouldn't be able to play with them during recess.
Oh my
And
god.
so they would trip me with the jump rope. And
Wait, who would trip you with a jump rope?
the student that the teacher asked to watch
Kids
over me
can be
made sure that I wouldn't
savage
have a
at
recess
school.
Wait, a
for not doing homework.
teacher told a kid to make sure you were miserable during recess.
Yeah, I
Oh
felt like
my.
the world was against me just
Yeah,
Jesus.
for existing.
I would feel like that too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's tough.
I think about it every single day. That's why I remember it. Like
Just
it was yesterday.
blatant ableism.
I thought there was nothing wrong with me, and then when I switched schools and they still bullied me at the other school, I was like,
Yeah.
"There's something wrong with me now. What's wrong?" I was almost 14
They just see
years
us as
old
a
when they came out.
target,
Yeah.
I
They had
think.
been testing me for ADD, and it kept coming out negative. And all I remember as a kid was they kept pulling me out of classes to test me on stuff. And I'm like, why are they doing this to me?
Yeah.
I just went into the office and he asked social questions.
Yeah.
Like, how do I, like, do I walk into a room and feel like everybody's staring at me? Or,
Yeah.
yeah, he just watched my behavior a little bit when I was talking. And after an hour, she turned to my mom and said, well, Mom, she has autism. And I was like, oh, and then she started bawling her eyes out.
Was she happy or sad?
She was heartbroken because she felt like she treated me wrong all these years. And my dad, too. My dad was crying.
So they,
Yeah.
I can
how did they
imagine that.
treat you? Did they treat you?
Zachary says, something I've noticed with a lot of autistic people I'm friends with is they're either ridiculously good looking or not. Am I the only one who sees this? I think you might be. I haven't seen that. I think it tends to vary just as much as most people in my opinion. Maybe it's like, because obviously like looks do play a factor in like social standings, particularly like with school and stuff. If you're attractive, you probably have a bit more of a chance of making it in like the social world at that age, or even just life in general, that whole like halo effect and stuff. But I imagine that more attractive people might generally have a better experience with life, which may make them a bit more sociable and outgoing, maybe. Possibly.
You had.
No, I thought they were pretty nice with me. I don't know why they're. Yeah.
I personally wasn't cognitive about it until like I was much later into my life, probably like around 14 or 15, when I was able to actually understand that I'm autistic or
Yeah.
I have autism. But in terms of like,
It was, I think it was probably like around the age of 8 or 9 that I was like, hey, I'm a bit different to these other children, kiddies walking about and playing and all that. That's when I noticed it. It was only until like my early 20s that I started to really like research it as more than just social and sensory things.
told family I didn't speak till I was 4. I went to doctors and all that kind of stuff, and they told them that I was diagnosed with autism.
What was that like when you found out?
When I found out, I couldn't comprehend it. I just didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what that means, because like it's not like I know what it means to be normal.
Well, no, it's not
Like,
taught, and I wish it was taught.
And I've always been like this.
I don't see anything wrong with me at all. Like when I was growing up, I had an aide.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just everyone had an aide.
Right. You didn't notice that other people did not have AIDS?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I didn't. That's not what I meant. I'm gonna go ahead and cancel myself right now. Can you explain what the sensory sensitivities with autism are?
For me, it's mostly sounds.
Zachary says, then again, I have a weird taste in looks. I think Daniel Craig, young Jack Nicholson, and even Elon Musk are kind of hot. Whereas I say Tom Cruise does nothing for me. Yeah, I think if I was attracted to men, I'd probably probably my go-to would be like someone like Jason Momoa, just because of like how alternative-y and badass he looks. But I think that's more of like an appreciation on my side. Rachel C says, teachers used to tell me I had trouble with eye contact and socializing, but nothing was ever done. I learned to be normal and make eye contact. Yeah, it's that whole masking thing, isn't it? It's like they kind of gaslight you into doing things that are not good for you and that kind of go against who you are, but at the same time, like, tell you to like be yourself and do all that stuff. It's very like conflicting information, I would say, like, especially in my experience. You can find that conflicting information everywhere, though. It's yeah.
Like, not loud noises, but someone talking on the phone in the room next to me, or the dog barking at the street, or maybe my neighbors hammering a table or something.
So it's less
So
physical sensory stuff. It's more just like a mental, like you're fixating on certain.
Yeah, I heard about someone saying about like auditory claustrophobia. That's something that I heard. I think it was Undercover Auti on Instagram. He made a post and some reels about it. You know, it's kind of like the accumulation of background noise that you get in like busy public spaces. That really drives my anxiety through the roof.
Yeah, exactly, that too.
It sounds a lot like, and I'm not saying it's the exact same thing, but it sounds a lot like when I'm having a panic attack. And
I get those, seriously.
you get those too?
Yeah.
And you focus on one thing and you feel like it's just overwhelming.
Yeah. I get that 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to.
I think, like, Zachary says, I'm surprised more autistic people don't go into show business because masking is basically acting. I think they probably do. Like, I think once autism becomes like a mainstream thing and we get rid of all like the annoying stigma behind it, then maybe that might be the case that we do that. I have a podcast with a guy called Reggie on the 40 Auti podcast that you can check out if you like. And he's an actor. Weird thing is, he never gets given autism roles. Like, they won't give him an autistic role because of how he looks. He's a very handsome chap. And he likes his musicals and things like that. But he always gets cast as like this jockish character because of the way that he looks. It's really interesting. Like just how much like specificity they have on what roles they want them to fill. They're looking for some like nerdy white kind of perhaps stereotypically unattractive person to play an autistic person. It's kind of screwed up, but I think that's the way that they go with like typecasting and stuff. Zachary says, sometimes I wonder how much of what being called hearing loss is more of audio processing issue in the brain, including autistic people. Well, it is like, I do know that in childhood it is definitely like a misdiagnosis that occurs quite commonly. I think it's something to do with like recognizing that someone's speaking and looking at them. But yeah, I'd say that too. Especially in like busy places, it's really hard to concentrate on what someone's saying.
You feel like you're having a panic attack 24 hours a day?
Well, sometimes it's worse than that. Sometimes I actually faint, and that's way too frequent.
You'll faint from the anxiety that you feel?
Yeah.
Do you go through life proud of your autism, or do you kind of keep it more of a secret?
I mean, I guess, well, for me personally, because I'm higher functioning, actually most people won't even recognize me that I'm on the spectrum. Like, I remember when I first was
She's a passer.
coming out on Facebook, a lot of the comments I would get, they were saying, I never knew, but I'm so great to hear your story. And it's like inspiring to see like those hurdles.
Takes a lot of courage,
I would never have believed you, because it's an invisible disorder. So it's really hard to tell unless you're actually like get to know the person.
At first I was ashamed about it. I tried to keep it hidden. I even tried to convince myself that I wasn't autistic, but now I'm a self-advocate for it, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to help other people that have it.
Do you ever feel like people underestimate what you're capable
True,
of
Zachary.
because you're on the spectrum?
Yeah, yeah. They underestimate intelligence and capability and
Yeah.
the ability to play sports and drama.
That's the thing. Like, it's not necessarily connected to like our abilities, like the social stuff. And people sort of naturally assume that if you are competent at something, that you're gonna have like good social skills. You're gonna have that charisma and stuff. And there's a lot of people who make it in the working world just because they have that charisma and they just are just natural like socialites, and we just kind of get left in the dust a little bit. It's the same issue that comes across with like interviews and stuff for work. It's quite sad because there's a lot of people with a lot of amazing skills that are just waiting to be used and harnessed and improving businesses and so many areas, but we just don't get tapped into. We see it as like a charity effort.
Really?
I feel like I'm a good athlete in some ways.
So people will say like, wow, you can drive? You're autistic? I didn't know you could
Yeah,
drive.
like, why do you have your license? You have autism. But I'm not blind.
How do you think people without autism should interact with people who are on the spectrum?
Treat us normally. I keep using normal, I'm sorry. Treat us like
you would anyone else?
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
treat us like how you would treat anyone else. Be aware that the fact that we do have a mental disability.
Yeah.
No, we don't have a mental disability, but it is neurodevelopmental. It's not a mental disability. But Zachary says, I reached out to that filmmaker dude from your documentary. I'd kill to make movies, but I just don't know how to start, who to reach out to, where to go. You can find a lot of information about doing that stuff on YouTube, I would say. It's not an easy thing. It kind of feels like when you watch something on YouTube that it's kind of, they just did some shoots, they put it together and they just flip between the cameras, but there's a lot to do with it. Like, there's so much that goes into like making videos and making films and stuff. You should check out my documentary that I did as part of my thing. I loved what he's saying until he said the word mental disability. Yeah, well, some people have learning disabilities and autism. But, like, it's definitely not. But some of the most talented, intelligent people I've talked to have been autistic, so I wouldn't say that it's like a mental disability.
We do have autism, but don't be changing the way you speak, the way you act. Honestly speaking, you're
No,
more
you know,
personal,
I get
casual
what
people.
you're saying, but like, I get what you're saying. Like, you want to treat them like anyone else that you'd meet, as in like you would interact with them the same way and treat them with respect and all of that kind of thing. But I think to a certain extent, like understanding a bit like how we communicate and the ways that stuff can come across that doesn't actually mean certain things, like not making eye contact might be perceived of being quite insecure, unconfident, shifty, not interested in what you're saying. Just being aware of like little things like that, I think are really important, because if they would just kind of go up to you with like no knowledge of autism, like a zip, like nothing, and they start having a conversation with you like they would with most people, they'd make a lot of judgments very quickly. And I think being able to be aware of those misconceptions and judgments that people have is quite important for like integrating autistic people. But I do get the sentiment of what he's saying. Zachary says, being bright most of the time, not driving, and living in an area where movies don't get made doesn't help. True. I don't drive. It's I have a driving license. I don't drive. It's too stressful for me. Yeah, I mean, you can start. I mean, I had a very iPad. I had an iPad. I did use Final Cut Pro, but yeah, I suppose you could probably do it on iMovie. There'll be a lot of stuff out there that you can use as like a stepping stone. You know, you might just want to try it out as just like a off the cuff kind of thing. See if you like the process. You actually like editing it and things like that, because that's very important if you're wanting to do it as like a career.
When it comes to talking to me, when it comes to it, and that's good. Because
really?
even though you're addressing the fact that I have autism, you're not like changing anything. You're not changing the way you act. I've seen other videos with you in it, and you're the same person. The way you talk to other people versus me.
Do you find that some people will just automatically change the way they talk?
Yeah, the baby
I'm
voices.
fine with really bubbly people because I feel
The
welcome.
baby voices, the infantilization. I think I know what he's saying.
Of course. Approachable.
I kind of hear that.
I didn't find that at least. The only difference that I see is there's less eye contact, but that doesn't bother me. Especially
Okay.
because I understand what it is that, you know, the way that you perceive the world is a little bit different.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts regarding the idea that some people have that autism is caused by vaccination? Yeah.
I don't like using that word because I've been taught by my mother not to say the word hate, but
That's the one thing.
Well, yeah, it's just like absolute rubbish. It's ridiculous. It's like with that first, you know, when I was talking earlier about like autism and vaccinations with that whole, I think it's something that I saw about on social media about like Joe Rogan saying something about like 5G. I don't know if anyone's got the video for that or the link to that, but I'd probably want to watch that. But it's balls. It's rubbish.
study that has no
Andrew Wakefield.
evidence.
There you go.
And a lot of people.
Let's pause that. The widespread fear that vaccines increase risk of autism originated in the 1997 study, that's weird, that's my birthday, published by Andrew Wakefield, a British surgeon. The article was published in The Lancet, a prestigious medical journal, suggesting that measles, mumps and rubella MMR vaccine was increasing autism in British children. The paper has since been completely discredited due to serious procedural errors, disclosed financial conflicts of interest, and ethical violations. Andrew Wakefield lost his medical license and the paper was redacted. And it still stays along after all this time. Craziness. Still talked about.
Yeah.
And on top of that, first of all, even if it did cause autism, why is having
Your stream is
autism
starting to
worse than
hitch.
having
Oh,
a
God.
polio?
That's true. People are like, I'd rather my kid be dying of a disease.
Is it still like, is it still not doing that good?
Cynthia Wagner wants to know what you think society could be doing to better serve people with autism.
It's okay if you can't understand it. I'm not expecting you to understand 100% of everything that goes down with autism.
Let's
But
reduce
at least have an
the.
open mind and
It's good
understand
now.
that yes, it exists.
I'm going to reduce the
It's
quality by a
not
little
wrong.
bit. Go to 720.
I have it. Other people have it too. So just be mindful that it exists.
My audio
Something
goes
you
out
wish you could
every
say to
every few
everyone
seconds.
who doesn't
Okay.
understand autism and maybe doesn't want to take the time to understand autistic people.
Autism is not an excuse to misbehave. It's not a learning disability. It's not social anxiety. It's simply a different way of thinking and a different way of experiencing the world.
I actually have a parting gift
I
for
like
you.
that.
Best interviewer shirt for you.
Aw.
You can get that at padildoshop.com, but for you, that is free.
Wait,
Thank
is he being serious?
Subscribe to Anthony Padilla, please. like seriously, please. Like,
Yeah,
he
please.
brought a bunch of people. now.
Aw, thanks, man. All right, you got 5 seconds to shout out or promote anything you want directly into camera. Go.
You can find me at Facebook or Instagram at Daniela Fields. I'm very boring. It's just my regular name.
I'm in a nonprofit documentary, and you can check out the website at autismgoestocollege.org.
My name is Robot Richie on everywhere. Robot Richie, one word, on YouTube and Instagram.
Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Thank
I feel
you.
like I understand the wondrous world of autism just a little bit more. Thank you. After spending the day with these autistic people, I've come to realize just how much we could learn from the way they perceive
You know,
the
I'd
world.
throw
Shouldn't we
Robot
be doing more to
Richie.
spread awareness and education on disorders like autism so we can understand and appreciate those who are different from the perceived norm?
You
in our
know,
society?
you know, like
See you later,
I
bye,
know
guys.
that he doesn't really understand a lot about like the terminology and like autism stuff, but like I appreciate that he's done something like that. I think it was as tasteful as I would expect, especially like considering it was like 3 years ago, you know. So